Have you ever mistaken your solitude for a sign of failure? Have you ever sat in the quiet, looked around and wondered if this emptiness means you're being left behind, forgotten, unwanted, unseen? You're not alone in that feeling, and you're not wrong for having it. But what if I told you that solitude, true, deep, undistracted solitude, is not your enemy, but your greatest source of strength? This message is not about pretending that isolation doesn't hurt. It's not a speech to numb your emotions or offer hollow encouragement. This is a journey, a Stoic journey, through the sacred space of being alone. And along the way, we'll uncover a truth that could reshape the way you see your life forever, because solitude isn't sadness, it's Stoic power. In the next 30 minutes, here's what you'll gain. You'll learn how ancient Stoic wisdom transforms loneliness into inner peace, not by escaping it, but by mastering it. You'll hear real-life examples of how people used solitude not to break, but to rebuild their lives from the inside out. You'll walk away with practices and quotes from Seneca, Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus that will stay with you long after this video ends. But before we go further, ask yourself this. What do you usually do when you feel alone? Do you reach for your phone? Scroll endlessly? Turn on background noise just to silence your thoughts. We live in a world that fears silence, a world that teaches us to fill every empty space. But the Stoics? They taught something different, something radical. They taught that solitude is not absence, it's presence with yourself. And that's where the transformation begins. So if you've been feeling like something is wrong with you because you're alone, I invite you to stay. Stay, not to be rescued. Stay to remember your power, because the Stoics didn't just survive in solitude, they grew through it. They didn't see the quiet as punishment, they saw it as preparation. And today, you'll see why. Let's begin this path together, not away from solitude, but deeper into it, because hidden inside the silence is the version of you that you've been waiting to meet. When we think of an emperor, we imagine noise, crowds shouting, advisors whispering, war drums beating in the distance. But what if I told you that the most powerful emperor in Rome found his greatest strength in silence? Marcus Aurelius was the most powerful man in the world, ruler of a vast empire. Yet despite the pressure, the betrayal, the loss, the chaos, he often withdrew into solitude, and not because he was weak, because he was wise. One of his most famous reflections reads, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." Let that sink in. Not in a palace, not on vacation, not in the praise of others, but in his own soul. Marcus didn't write meditations for anyone else. It wasn't a book, it was his private journal, notes to himself. Written in the early hours of the morning, while alone in tents during military campaigns, while grieving the deaths of children, while questioning the meaning of duty and pain, he turned inward, not to escape the world, but to master how he met the world. Let me share a modern echo of this truth. There's a man named Christopher, mid-40s, divorced, kids on opposite coasts, career downsized, friends drifting. He told me once, the silence used to scare me, like it was swallowing me. But then he read Marcus Aurelius. Just one quote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." He began journaling every morning before checking his phone. At first just scribbles, then memories, then gratitude, then questions. The silence stopped being a black hole and became a mirror. One morning he wrote, "I'm not lost. I'm just alone." And there's a difference. That line changed everything. He started hiking, no music, cooking mindfully, reading slowly. He wasn't waiting to be rescued anymore. He was reclaiming himself. That is Stoicism in action. Because solitude, when embraced intentionally, doesn't shrink you, it sharpens you. Here's what I want you to take from this. You don't have to be an emperor to retreat into your soul. You don't need a mountain or monastery to hear your truest voice. All you need is to stop running from your thoughts, your past, your fears, and sit with them like old friends you're finally ready to understand. So here's a challenge. Tomorrow morning, before the world invades your mind, take 5 minutes, just 5. No music, no scrolling, just breathe. And ask, What is my soul trying to say beneath all this noise? Because as Marcus knew, the world may rage, but your soul can stay still. And when we learn how to dwell in that stillness, we unlock a strength that no chaos can touch. But what happens when we're alone, not by choice, but by abandonment? Let's explore that next, with the Stoic strength of letting go. What do you do when the people who once promised forever walk away? What do you do when someone ghosted you, betrayed you, or simply disappeared, leaving you not only alone but questioning your worth? Most people beg for closure. Some try to hold on, others shut down completely. But the Stoics, they taught us something different. They taught us how to let go without losing ourselves in the process. Epictetus, a man born a slave and later revered as one of the wisest Stoic philosophers, said this: "Some things are in our control, others are not." And that's where real peace begins. We suffer not just because people leave, but because we try to control what we were never meant to hold. Let me introduce you to a story. Her name is Lila. She was in her late 30s when her best friend of 15 years stopped returning her calls. No explanation, just silence. They shared birthdays, heartbreaks, inside jokes, everything. And then, one day, she was gone. Lila spiraled. She replayed every conversation, every message. "What did I do?" became her daily chant. Until one day, scrolling through a blog about philosophy and healing, she stumbled on this quote from Epictetus: "When someone irritates you, know this: it is your judgment that gives them power." That hit like lightning. She had given her friend power, not by loving her, but by attaching her self-worth to that relationship. Lila decided to do something different. She stopped waiting for closure from someone who had already closed the door. She wrote a letter, not to send, but to release. She walked every evening, not to forget, but to forgive. She meditated on this thought: "I do not control who stays, but I do control what I carry." Slowly, the pain didn't disappear, but it no longer defined her. This is the Stoic way. You feel the ache, but you don't feed it. And maybe that's what you need to hear today. It's okay to miss them. It's okay to wish things turned out differently. But it's not okay to abandon yourself while trying to hold on to someone who already let go. Here's what you can control: your breath, your thoughts, your boundaries, your self-respect, your next step. So today, take one small act of reclamation. Maybe it's deleting that thread of unsent texts. Maybe it's putting away the photos. Maybe it's just whispering, "I release them, and I return to myself." Because solitude doesn't mean no one wants you. Sometimes it means you've outgrown those who can't come with you to your next level. And the moment you stop chasing what walked away is the moment you start walking toward your true power. Now, what happens when solitude isn't caused by others, but by the chaos inside our own minds? Let's go deeper together. Sometimes solitude isn't about who left, it's about what stays with us. The loudest noise is not the one outside your window, but the one echoing inside your mind. Have you ever sat in silence only to be ambushed by your own thoughts? Regret, shame, doubt, a highlight reel of mistakes, fears, and all the should-haves and what-ifs. That's the quiet war within. And if you've been there, you're not weak. You're human. The Stoics faced that same inner battle, but they refused to be ruled by it. Seneca, one of the most eloquent Stoic philosophers, wrote this: "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." Pause and think about that. We relive conversations that already ended. We imagine failures that haven't happened. We rehearse pain that may never come, and in doing so, we lose the peace that's available right now. Let me share a story. Cameron was a young man in his 30s, no big tragedies in his life. But something felt wrong. Every time he was alone, his mind spiraled. He doubted his choices, judged his body, questioned his talent, compared himself relentlessly to others online. He once told his therapist, "The silence scares me, because when it's quiet I hear myself, and I don't like the voice in my head." Then one day, he read that same quote from Seneca: "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality," and it clicked. He wasn't broken, just believing every thought his mind threw at him. So Cameron began a Stoic practice, writing down his worries every night. Just 10 minutes, labeling thoughts as either reality or imagination. Asking this question, is this a fact or just fear? And slowly, the fog began to lift. His mind didn't go quiet, but it became clearer. He stopped fighting the thoughts and started observing them, like watching clouds pass, not storms to hide from. This is the true Stoic power. You don't have to believe everything you think. You can challenge it. You can change the way you respond to it. Because here's a truth the world won't teach you: your mind is not your master. It's your tool. And solitude, it's your training ground. So if you're currently battling self-doubt, imposter syndrome, anxiety, breathe this in. You are not the voice that criticizes you. You are the awareness that hears it and chooses a different path. Here's your practice for today. When you catch a negative thought, don't fight it. Just whisper, "That's not me, that's just a cloud." Let it drift, let it pass, return to the stillness beneath it. Because underneath the noise is a wiser voice, a truer you. And when you learn to be at peace with yourself, the world outside loses its power to define you. But what if solitude begins to feel too long, too permanent? In the final part, we'll talk about how to turn solitude into a sacred rhythm and why the Stoics didn't fear a life alone. There's a question many of us are afraid to ask out loud. What if I stay alone forever? What if the calls don't come? What if the love never arrives? What if the room stays quiet for the rest of our lives? That fear isn't just about loneliness. It's about meaning. Because deep down, we're not just afraid of being alone. We're afraid of our aloneness, meaning we're unworthy. But friend, here's the truth the Stoics knew. Solitude isn't something to survive. It's something to honor. It's where the real you is reborn. Marcus Aurelius didn't fear solitude. He sought it. Seneca didn't fill his life with noise. He stripped it down to what mattered. Epictetus, who once had nothing, taught the world. That freedom isn't the absence of others. It's the mastery of self. So what if, instead of waiting for someone to fill the silence, you allowed the silence to fill you? What if solitude was never a prison, but a pilgrimage, a sacred return, not to someone else, but to the deepest part of yourself? The part that doesn't need applause to feel seen, the part that doesn't need to perform to feel loved, the part that is already whole. Let me tell you about Maya. She's 60, widowed, her kids grown. She eats breakfast alone every morning. And one day a neighbor asked her, "Don't you get lonely?" She smiled and replied, "At first, yes, but now I get still." She walks to the same bench each day, sips tea, watches birds. She reads philosophy, journals, sings softly while folding laundry. Her solitude doesn't scream, it hums. She's not empty, she's rooted. And so can you be, because this life, your life, is not waiting for someone to complete it. It's inviting you to show up fully, even when no one else is clapping. So here's what I want you to remember as we close. Solitude isn't sadness, it's space. It's where noise ends and clarity begins. It's where ego dies and the soul speaks. And you don't have to run from it anymore. You get to rise from it. If this message spoke to you, if something in your spirit felt seen, don't let it stop here. Comment below with the words, "I honor my solitude." Let's build a community of quiet strength, of people not afraid to sit with themselves. Share this video with someone who's been struggling in the silence. Subscribe for more Stoic reflections, healing words, and wisdom that anchors your soul. Because the world may never understand your quiet, but here you don't have to explain it. Here your solitude isn't your weakness, it's your superpower, and from this moment on, you'll never see it the same way again.